Good morning.
I'm not used to using a microphone. I've got a coach's voice, so can you all hear me back there okay? We've got no feedback down here. I want to welcome you to the celebration of life for Coach Lanny Landtroop. Thank you for being here and for joining us on YouTube. My name is Dana Abbott. I am the swim coach at St. John the 23rd College Prep in Katy and formerly at Katy High School. I am also a past president of the Texas Interscholastic Swimming Coaches Association, known as TISCA, and the National Interscholastic Swimming Coaches Association, NISCA. In those capacities, my professional and personal relationship with Lanny and Sandra Landtroop developed and grew into a great friendship. It's my privilege to be here with you today to celebrate the life of an incredible mentor and cherished friend. Lanny was a profound thinker and was the epitome of those who inherently empower and elevate those around him. But he was also the epitome of a casual lifestyle, and I rarely saw him travel or relax in anything but khaki shorts or jeans and a Hawaiian shirt. We invited you to wear Hawaiian shirts and adopt a Lanny casual dress today. And I'm so glad I see more Hawaiian shirts than just mine. Thank you for that. Lanny would love it. I said Lanny was a profound thinker. We traveled a few times to coaching meetings, and when we rode together, I recall staying wide awake listening to his profound and deep wisdom and his outlook on many things. Then he would fall asleep, and I remained wide awake, listening to his profound and deep snoring. The price of learning. Most of us here know Lanny through the sport of swimming. But he was more than a great coach. He was an amazing father, brother, grandfather, cousin, and especially an adoring husband to Sandra. I'll share some of Sandra's loving description of Lanny in a little bit. How many of you know that before he developed his love and expertise in competitive swimming, he was a baseball person? I found some general quotes about coaches that I thought exemplify so many of the wonderful facets of Lanny's life and his personality and his character. And one of the first ones I saw was this one about a baseball coach. He started coaching me in baseball at 12 and then started coaching me in life. Several years ago, Chuck Warner and I co-authored a book about University of Texas coach Eddie Reese, and we subtitled it, Coaching Swimming, Teaching Life. That may be the most fitting subtitle any book about great coaches in swimming, or actually any sport, could have. Teaching life. That's why we're here today. We're asking guests who are going to speak with us here to simply share the impact and influence that Lanny had on their lives outside of the pool. These additional quotes fit Lanny's coaching approach, I think. A good coach improves your game. A great coach improves your life. A good coach will make his athletes see what they can be rather than what they are. Visualization was a huge part of Lanny's approach to coaching, whether it was on the pool deck, the SBR, also known as the strength building room or the weight room, or in the classroom. And I hope we're going to hear some stories about that. The last quote, youth sports isn't just about sport, it's about keeping fun in the game and teaching your athletes lessons they can take with them in life. Like many young coaches getting started, I first encountered Lanny at a swim clinic. His nuggets of wisdom and his positive approach to coaching rang true for me and many others. If Lanny was speaking at a clinic I was attending, it didn't matter who else was on the schedule. I was going to Lanny's talk. Lanny spoke at 14 NISCA national conferences, 4 ASCA World clinics, and 17 TISCA clinics. His talks always packed the house. His leadership skills propelled him to the office of president in both TISCA 3 times and NISCA. State Coach of the Year 18 times. National Federation Coach of the Year, Outstanding Texas Swimming Coach of the 20th Century, all of which earned him the nickname the Dean of Texas High School Swimming. NISCA Collegiate Scholastic and Hall of Fame Awards, NISCA Life Member Award, TSCA Lifetime Achievement Award, and many others. I'd been a member of TSCA and NISCA for about 20 years when I got a call from Lanny during the 2000-2001 swim season. He had been notified that he was to receive the NISCA Hall of Fame Award at the NCAA Men's Swimming and Diving Meet in College Station. And he was asking me to be his presenter. At the NISCA Awards banquet, and after sharing numerous accolades from former swimmers and divers, some of whom are here today, I remarked that if I had a time machine, I'd go back to high school to be coached by Lanny Landtroop. I meant it. And I still consider being asked by Lanny to be his presenter for NISCA's highest award to be one of the great honors of my life. I'd like to read comments about Lanny that were included in the NISCA Awards banquet program just a few months ago. If I could find them. The swimming community lost a giant last year. Lanny Landtroop, the Dean of Texas High School Swimming, a true legend, our colleague, our mentor, our friend. His wisdom will continue to guide us, and our lives are better because he touched them. Lanny was a coach above all, and above all, he was a coach. How many people have you met that could really change the way you looked at your profession? Lanny was one of those people. He was the best part of many swimmers' high school years, a major force. Lanny Landtroop had an indelible impact on his swimmers' lives. Swimming under his influence was life-changing and molded many into the people they are today. His quiet leadership and positive energy guided them in every aspect, not just in the pool, but in relationships, in community. He inspired many to be better citizens. His impact reached far and wide and spanned generations of young people who are now passing down his legacy to their kids and even grandkids. He lived the example of what every person strives to be. His leadership, generosity of time and investment in his athletes and young people during their formative years is legend. Lanny taught life skills through sport that not only brought out the best in athletics and teamwork, but developed awareness and abilities to lead enriching and fulfilling lives. His legacy will continue beyond his students, beyond his colleagues, beyond his friends, to all those who have shared his teachings. His positive impact on so many people is immeasurable. Those are a lot of words. But our good friend, Eddie Reese, coach at the University of Texas, put it all together in 6 words. He knew the secret of life. Few men have impacted as many lives as Lanny did. Always to be remembered are his motivational talks, his ruthless dedication to hard work, and that sly little smile he had when he would joke with his kids. Mark Onstadt, formerly at Cy-Fair and New Trier High School, and also former president of both TSCA and NISCA, is going to speak later about Lanny's contributions in history in NISCA and his impact on Mark's life. So I will leave you with just a few things I learned from Lanny that enhanced my coaching career. 1, can't is a 4-letter word, also referred to as the C word, not to be used. As he explained it, can't very often means won't, and that is just not acceptable. Varsity swim practices usually start very early in the morning at a time we often refer to as dark 30. And teenagers are often not very alert or attended first thing in the morning. So Lanny devised a game. If he and a swimmer see each other early in the morning, the first one to greet the other one wins. No points, no prizes, but it's a win nonetheless. Breaking bad habits is hard to do for a lot of people. Lanny said, put a good rubber band around your wrist. When a negative thought enters your mind or you do something that you wish you hadn't, grab that rubber band and give it a snap. Enough stings from the rubber band will help you change that habit or thought. Trust me, it works. Many of us have the tendency to control behavior by saying, don't do this, or don't do that. Lanny explained that you unintentionally reinforce the undesired behavior by mentioning it. Instead, he said, say, do this, or do that. You are planting the seed for the desired behavior without referencing the undesired. Don't drop your elbows becomes keep your elbows on. Any of you coaches ever have problems with tardies at morning practice? You people that swam with Lanny know where I'm going. Lanny suggested to me to get a few scuba weight belts in 2 and 4 pound weights. Anyone coming in late had to grab a 2 pound weight belt and swim the rest of the practice with it. If they had to be reminded to grab a weight belt, they got a 4 pound. So I said, that sounds like a pretty good idea. So I broke into the Coke machine, got some money, went down to the dive shop, got a couple of weight belts, some 2 and 4 pound weights, and I got to tell you, the third day after implementing this new tradition, you know, Lanny was big on tradition, right? I rarely had parties after that. Finally, the high esteem we had for Coach Lanny Landtroop was evident anytime there was an issue or concern or people had questions about anything. The path to enlightenment always started with the words, ask Lanny. Those of us that did were often rewarded with very sage advice. Country musician Trace Atkins' ballad, You're Gonna Miss This, stresses the importance of appreciating all of life's moments, even the messy ones. Today's trouble, the tune teaches, become tomorrow's treasures. This wise counsel has classical roots. In Book 1 of Virgil's Aeneid, and I'm sure Lanny read that, Trojan hero Aeneas, after the fall of Troy, rallies his storm-tossed and cityless countrymen with these words, someday it will be pleasing to recall even these things. Hard times and adventures eventually end, and when they do, they're recollected differently. When Russ Doohan comes up to talk, he's going to share a story that brings that right to mind. But first, I want to share some of Sandra's words. When we learned of Lanny's passing last year, Sandra put together some words that really struck home and were very heartwarming, and I'd just like to read them. Today is a fine day, I think, to celebrate the life he made. The scores of tributes, expressions of appreciation, and messages of deep affection from so many swimmers, students, coaching colleagues, and family members, and friends, old and new, are evidence of the person he became. We're so very grateful for every one of your communications about and remembrances of an extraordinary man. But he was also the freckle-faced, red-headed little boy with me in Mrs. Howard's first grade classroom. An all-boy who loved to bike to the Texas City dike to fish with his buddies, to play basketball, baseball, and football with equal measures of abandon and joy. To explore his world, bringing home snakes and other critters to observe. That last one was problematic for his mother and sisters. Lanny was also an eager teen Eagle Scout aspirant who fashioned by hand a Native American dance costume, bustle, headdress, everything, and learned with fellow scouts native dances to perform in powwows. Unsurprisingly, mothers of daughters who sought permission to attend a party often asked if Lanny would be there. Granting permission, the answer was yes. A dear friend relates a story from those teen years about him stripping to his skivvies, again on the dike, and jumping into the bay to help a struggling swimmer. He's also the teenage boy who, with his cousin, taught swim lessons to African-American children at their pool when officials denied those kids lessons at the white pool. Pretty evident where this fellow was headed. I remember him from those days as the very nicest boy, full of joy and fun and decency. Being with the adult Lanny was, for me, like basking in sunshine. So much so I'd bring my schoolwork to swim meets just to be in the bleachers watching him coach, while I tried to learn the sport and be more part of the exceptional culture he created. But make no mistake, storm clouds can quickly overtake the sunshine when he sensed meanness, cruelty, or injustice. His enthusiasm for his profession and his swimmers and students was impossible to resist, but he also had such a deep interest in the world and its people. He read and retained amazing amounts of information. The first time I visited Lanny and Sandra down the road here, I was amazed at how many books they had on the shelves. And unlike my house, where books sit unread for decades, I'm sure that Lanny and Sandra read every single one that they put up on their shelves. I know by now you can tell that I am his most ardent fan and admirer. But there was so much to appreciate and truly to love. The virtues that imbued his character, quiet confidence, never arrogance, moral and physical courage, curiosity, loyalty, commitment, kindness, and decency never overshadowed his humanity. No priggishness, no self-righteousness, no false superiority marred his goodness. He also adored his parents, sisters, aunts and uncles, cousins, without reservation. But the light of his life was his son Jason, his boon traveling companion, ardent swim team, cheerleader, mascot, and all-around fan. Later, my own children were warmly embraced by his love and concern. I'm so grateful for his presence in Stephen, Michael, and Kathy's lives. As our family grew, Jason's cat, Mike's Brandy, and Kathy's Jimmy also became part of our circle. And then those grandchildren who simply adored him and were adored by him. Madeline, Brooke, Summer, Avery, Lanny's little sweethearts, he called them. Dressed him up, doctored him with Band-Aids and gauze, danced recitals in the den for him, sought baby doll sitting duties, and advice about Barbie's late stuff. Alex, whom he named, and Andrew, who bears his name, loved his big hugs and great corny jokes. But so did we all. We shared a truly fine life together, even in the face of his 3 cancers. He was stoic and determined, upbeat and positive through every test, surgery, treatment, a wonder to witness. He was ever concerned about the effect it was having on me. And I used him as my model for strength and optimism. Near the end, he ordered for me a pandemic surprise, an elegant, deep red cashmere shawl. It strikes me now as a fitting image of his love and concern for me, always so warm and comforting and present. We all will miss our Lanny so very much, but his love and remarkable character will sustain us. His example will guide us. His goodness and decency will remind us what a human being can be, and thus of what we must strive to be. His own dear departed dad would proudly say of his exceptional son, he was simply great. Sandra is a wonderful wordsmith, and I love those words. And how better to follow me reading Sandra's words than to hear her own.
Well, I've had the most wonderful morning reading all of you, and I'm so happy you're here, and I just appreciate it so very much. There were a couple of things I wanted to say to you. First of all, I know you really wanted to be here, especially after that track down the hall. We didn't plan it that way, but it worked out. You got your steps in it. So, I also want to say I'm not wearing a white shirt, but my attire today is what many prefer me to wear. A white shirt and jeans. They're not Levi's, but you prefer that. Anyway, I have my Navajo curls on, which were an anniversary from. So, you all know about his career and character to some extent, and you'll find out a little more later from the experts. But I do have to tell you just a quick little story. We were in the 2nd grade together, and we knew each other all during high school and really liked each other, good friends. even rode back and forth together to SFA and a commute from time to time. Shep, who's here, was with us. We met at our 30th high school reunion again, had a wonderful time, danced, talked, and at the end of the day, or the evening, had our dinner, we were all kind of visiting and dancing. And as we were preparing to leave that evening, he said, what do you think, maybe we could go to a movie or out to dinner together sometime? And I said, oh, sure. He said, well, give me your number, I'll call you. I'm still moving back from Austin, but I'll call you. So the next day, I went out and bought an answering machine because I wasn't going to miss that one. Now, you know, in those days, it wasn't as easy to get those messages. It was before we had phones and texts and all of that sort of thing. But it paid off. Anyway, after reunion, we rekindled our friendship. And then we had a couple of dates. On the first date, we actually had dinner with my sister-in-law, Lori, my sister-in-law, Sandy, my daughter, at Papa Seafood. And then afterwards, that's, by the way, still our favorite place, but afterwards we went to his townhouse. And I walked in and thought, this man is different. He has living plants. He has art on the wall. He has books everywhere and magazines. He has matching dishes, and they're in the cupboard. And he had made beds. Need I say more? I was probably good right then. The second date we had, we went to my sister-in-law Lori's in-laws, where she and Randy were staying with their 3 children for whose birthday was it? Third birthday. Becky's, yes. And so I got that trip. Before we got there, we were looking around and driving through the neighborhood. It's in Texas City. And like I said, I think I know where it is. And so we parked and went up to the door and knocked on the door. And the lady came to the door and he didn't know her at all. He said, oh, I think I have the wrong house. Came back laughing at himself. Now that's laughing, not irritated, not angry that he had the wrong place. It was really wonderful. At any rate, we got there and then had a wonderful time. Finally, we went after the birthday celebration over to Guido's Seafood. Well, that's been the mantra of our lives. We love both those seafoods, so Pappas, Guido's, anywhere we get fish. Mark, you remember that, right? Mark is a beekeeper. At any rate, just throughout the rest of that wonderful life period, I found out that he was a great fan of movies, but he especially liked westerns. He loved All the President's Men. I was really overshadowed by Annette Bening for quite a while after that. Not All the President's Men, but The American President. And then All the President's Men, he really enjoyed the political aspects of that movie. But his 2 favorite movies of all time were Big Country with Gregory Peck and Charlton Heston. If you've never seen it, you need to rent it or find it someplace to watch it. And he loved Jeremiah Johnson. Now, we were talking about his tradition. One of our traditions was every year, at least once, we had to watch Jeremiah Johnson and Robert Redford fighting that bear. That was a lot of fun, just to get to know him and to get to know his likes and dislikes so much. He loved Willie Nelson. I think one of the songs that we have in the playlist is All My Heroes Have Been Cowboys, and I think had a feeling that he was a cowboy. But he also liked Gene Autry, Swimmers. You remember at Christmas time? You got Here Comes Santa Claus? Yeah, that was one of his favorite things to do to you. Sports fan, loved the Cougars, loved the Horns, would root for the Aggies. He also loved the Rockets and the Astros, of course. And he tried to love the Texans. That's all I would say. I would say that our relationship is exemplified best by this. It's a kind of free verse poem called Love is Friendship on Fire. Love is friendship on fire. It is quiet, mutual confidence, sharing and forgiving. It is loyalty through good and bad times. It settles for less than perfection and makes allowances for human weaknesses. Love is content with the present, hopes for the future, and does not big victories, and working toward common goals. If you have love in your life, it can make up for a great many things you lack. If you do not have it, no matter what else there is, it is not. We had my son read that at our wedding, where our wedding party consisted of all our children. And we had a huge great reception at the lake where we were married. And the reunion with people coming in their shorts, and t-shirts, and swimsuits, dogs, cats. They brought their own chairs. It was the most wonderful ceremony. And I will miss him, but I so appreciate 30-something years. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Russ Dewin. Coach Dewin was Lanny's assistant coach and right-hand man here at Kingwood for many years and took the coaching reins after Lanny's retirement. His remarks will share an incredible adventure on the ocean that mirror the ancient words of Virgil and the lessons in Mr. Adkins' valley.
I told that story to be here for about an hour and a half, so it was quite the story though. And even with the adventures that we had in East Bay of Galveston, I never did see Lanny really get that upset until we ran out of beer. that was a big tipping point. And we did have a flask of rum, but he passed on that. So anyways, thank you, Dana. Sandra, that was beautiful. When Sandra called me last August and let me know about Lanny, I was crushed. My heart sank, and what was so strange is that that was the day of the alumni get-together where kids from Kingwood High School came back together and they had swim meet here and there's a lot of stuff going on, and it was just unbelievable that had happened, because you think that Lanny would still be here with us and live to at least 102. So anyways, let me go ahead and get started with what I wrote down, which it seemed to have changed at least 77 times since last August. And since it's still morning time, I'll say good morning and Iki Lahumba. My name is Russell Dewin. I was Lanny's assistant here at Kingwood High School for 13 years. I remember when Lanny came here for the first time and I met him. I was a young second-year coach and had no clue what he was all about. I knew he was hired away from Clear Lake High School, and he coached all those really fast kids that I used to swim way back in the 80s, like the Borkowskis or the Ruskowskis, just to name a few. But I was pretty anxious when I met Lanny. But we sat down, and as he would say, we chewed the fat for a while, and I knew that after that first meeting, he was someone special that I needed and wanted to learn from. From that first meeting till today, I consider Lanny as one of the most important mentors and influential persons that I've ever met. As the years passed, Lanny became more than just a colleague. He was a confidant, he was my compadre, a friend, and a fishing buddy. I saw that he was a very loving man. He loved his family. He loved the hill country. He loved his longhorns. He loved nature and being outdoors, camping or fishing. He loved his music with Willie Nelson, which Sandra just mentioned a little bit ago. He loves food, especially seafood. I remember we used to sneak away. We had a really nice schedule here at Kingwood High School where Thursdays we were able to just ease out the door and go to this restaurant called Baytown Seafood Restaurant, which was not too far away from here. And we had great lunches, and we invited more coaches and more coaches. And it got to be a pretty big thing sitting over there for about an hour and a half eating seafood. Those were great days. I remember he was so proud and excited when Jason became chef and restaurant owner. Lanny loved being an educator and loved working with high school students. Lanny was a special kind of teacher, though. He came from simpler times when kids were kids and parents were parents. One of the things he used to say at parent meetings was, when your kids are in my classroom or at the pool, they are my kids. I will treat them like my own kids. I will praise them when they make good choices, and I will hold them accountable and responsible when they don't make good choices. Lanny explained that life was about making choices. There are no have-tos, only get-tos and choose-tos. And that also instilled the mantra, if it is to be, it's up to me, and of course, a dugabab. And those that are in here know what dugabab means. Every day, in every way, we get better and better. Lanny was a storyteller kind of teacher. Everything had a backstory to it, which he related to whatever was going on in that particular time of the season. When we had team meetings or classroom sessions that included team building activities, we discussed a lot of things, just such as synergy, or creating an athlete's season notebook, or going to the field for amoeba runs. And you guys, I know some of you are out there that know what those amoeba runs are all about. Everything had purpose. Sometimes pretty complex things were discussed, like Bernoulli's principle, and the X factor, and using X, Y, I floats. Long X's and short X's. Slice the butter, call your mother. I know you remember that. He had little acronyms like Otis, Ogie Ogo, Top Tip, Tom, Oyo, to make the kids think about what, it just made it a lot simpler. They'll never forget about the BWRA and the crazy times that he used to say. Bus wheels roll at 417. And kids, 417, but right there, that made an impact. It clicked. It was a weird time, so they remembered when things were going to happen. Lanny always used the KISS method to make difficult concepts easier to think about and understand and then apply. One method that he used was always second-person teaching, putting the swimmers at task to teach each other concepts in the water. Lanny loved the sport of swimming, even though he was never a swimmer himself. He studied the sport and was the ultimate student of the sport, always staying green and learning, because he used to say, if you're not green, you're not growing. He learned from some of the best in the country, like Mark Schubert, Pat Patterson, and Eddie Reese, just to mention a few. He studied David Burkhoff and his underwater technique, calling it the 5th stroke. We studied Alexander Popov and his sprint training and techniques. Lanny was always looking for the next best way to make kids go fast. And as you know, his kids always went fast. Lanny and I shared a lot of great memories. I will never forget the 1994 boys team that set 2 national records and crushed everything in sight at the state meet. But what was so remarkable was that the girls kept fighting and edging their way to the top, and also became champions with the boys that year. We shared a lot of laughs talking about a show that was about nothing. We talked about fishing and the trip from hell to East Bay. And again, that's a whole other story right there. But Lanny bought a boat. He was so proud of it. We went out. I'll give you the short bit of it. The anchor rope was too short. The aerator died in his boat, so we lost about $100 worth of bait. We ran out of beer, you know that one. He didn't want to drink any rum, so that was out. The engine basically melted in the middle of East Bay. None of the phones worked. We were using literally, a mirror to try to flag. And the whole time, we kept fishing, and finally somebody came in and pulled us in, which was about an hour tow. And we got back, and Lanny pulled 100 out of his wallet, wanted to give to the guy. This guy said no. After hearing everything that had happened earlier, he said, "You've been through enough. Go ahead and keep your 100. Got you back safe. You got back." So anyways, that's a short story. So anyways, moving on. We talked about life and family. We laughed and cried, and we got really fired up at things sometimes. One of the most fired up times I ever saw Lanny was when we found out that a school in the Woodlands called McCullough, back in the day, had ripped us off the state league. And, we called them on it, and their coach called Lanny in the office, and I was sitting about 3.5, 4 feet away, and that became quite the conversation. And, I've seen Lanny get upset. He got, and it starts here. It just turns red. It gets more and more red, and then everything around here got red. And I go, "Lanny, you hang up." And finally, it became a shouting session where that coach said, "I'm going to come kill you." And Lanny's like, "Well, come on. We're waiting for you." And I'm going, "What am I doing? What's up?" So, anyways, that was another great story with Lanny. Lanny had an incredible list of accomplishments and accolades, including numerous district, region, state championships, national title wins, along with Coach of the Year awards, NISTA Coach of the Year awards. You can see everything right here. However, Lanny always stayed humble and was so easy to approach and talk to. He was a genuine man that always kept his word. He would always warn me about those all hat and no cattle type of people. I remember when Lanny retired, so many people came up to me and said, "Coach Doohan, you've got some mighty big shoes to fill." My response was, "Nobody can fill Lanny's shoes. I just hope that I can walk the same path as he did." I will never forget Lanny and what he instilled in me as a person, a coach, and a teacher. He always said, "Live, love, and laugh. Dance with what brought you. Dance like nobody's watching. Chop wood, carry water. Sharpen your axe. Keep it simple, stupid. Be a storyteller. Take care of yourself so you can take care of others. Synergy, which is the whole is greater than some of its parts." We walked out of a meet at the Woodlands one time, and I think we crushed those guys, and our kids were so fired up. They said, "Coach, come on over here." So we walked over, and here's a group of boys around. It was one of our swimmers. It was Mike Perez, maybe? Coach Quinn? No? Bill Sheridan? So it was a green 8,000-pound car, what it looked like. It was an old vehicle. So all the guys walked around, got there. So watch this, Coach. And then on 3, about 10 guys picked up that car and walked it over, and then set it at an angle. So when the kid came out, he goes, "Hey, what happened to my car?" That was synergy. Always stay green. Life's about choices. There are only choose-tos. Do the right thing, even when nobody's watching. Don't coulda, woulda, shoulda, because you just might shoulda all over yourself. I love that. I'll never forget that. He had the 7 P's. I wrote these 7 P's in my classroom. Proper prior planning prevents pitiful, poor performance. Don't say the C word. I think Dana already talked about the C word. And he was so traditional. He says that's so important with teams, keeping traditions. I was telling Sandra when I spoke up, we took a trip to Austin a week ago, and I told Sandra, I go, you'll never guess what we just did. She goes, no, tell me. I go, well, we did our traditional pit stops. We stopped in Brenham for ice cream. We used to do on the way up. And we stopped for lunch at the Elgin Southside Barbecue. We're on the way home from the state meet. We stopped there as well. But don't forget about Luby's. And don't forget about the Hickory Street Grill. Those were all those great places where we, on the way up and back in the state meet. And one of his famous sayings, he always just say it's Confucius, but I don't know. He said, if you stay flexible, you'll never get bent out of shape. And as Lanny would close any talk or meeting, comments, questions, good jokes. Rest in peace, Lanny. We love you. Never forget you. Kingwood Mustangs, rah, rah, rah. I have a few other things I'd like to share real quick from a couple other ex-swimmers, now teachers, and coaches. Katie McBride, now Katie Stibridge. Coach Landtroop was my coach at Kingwood High School from 1993 to 1997, and I was the assistant coach under Russ Doohan for the 2 years after he retired in 2004 and 2006. He taught me not to only be a great athlete, but how to be a positive person so that I could become successful in life. He instilled being a team as one of the most important aspects of succeeding, and that everyone mattered. This was not only for being a good athlete, but life in general. I love how we made great days, said hi to the coaches before they said hi to us, never said the C word, and who can forget the late weight bills, which Dana talked about. I hated those. I hated those. It was funny because they'd start off, warm up, and then they would just keep getting lower and lower in the water. And then beg, can I take this off during the main set? I don't know. Maybe 25 push-ups will get you out of that weight bill. Anyways, those were great. We believed in him and never questioned any of these ideas. Coach Landtroop is one of the most positive persons I've ever known. I am currently the head coach of a high school swim team and strive to follow his footsteps to be the type of coach that he was. The next one is from Laura Ledlow, now Laura Fine. Oh my goodness, where do I begin? I can honestly say that Coach Landtroop and Coach Doohan, for that matter, have been a huge impact of my life. It all started out with a silly 14-year-old freshman, decent at swimming, went to try out for KHS swimming, and lo and behold, I actually made the team. From that time, I knew that I had a place to belong, and that was because of the environment that Coach Landtroop created and the people, my teammates, that he helped to influence. Coach Landtroop had quite a way about him that allowed us kids to want to become better. He motivated us without yelling, showed us the value of working hard, and also taught us to succeed, taught us to help our teammates and look out for one another. He helped create a safe place for us to succeed, to fail, and try again. To have friends and adults that supported us no matter what the mistakes we made, and always know that we had a place to belong. I fortunately learned how to be a much better coach than a swimmer because that helped me to choose a career path. As an adult, when I happened to get hired to coach here at KHS, which I'm still not sure how that happened, Coach Landtroop was there to help mentor me. I was young, inexperienced teacher, and a coach with only summer league experience, and he was there to help guide me with a smile and reassuring hand on my shoulder when he could see that I was struggling with the weight of trying to fill such big shoes. There are a few sayings of Coach Landtroop that have stuck with me, and I always chuckle when I think about them, because I'm now teaching them to my kiddos. If you're on time, you're late. And if you're early, you're on time. I can also say that I've used this mantra, and I try very diligently, although sometimes futilely, now that I have 3 stubborn children, but I really hate being late. And I know Laura's around here with her 3 children, somewhere. Try not, do not. There is try not, do, or do not. There is no try. Also, the C word. Not that one, but the word can't. That's what she wrote down. I'll agree on which word. Coach Landtroop drilled it into us that this was not an acceptable word in our vocabulary. And to this day, I really do feel there's anything that I am not able to accomplish. My 40-year-old body sometimes says otherwise, but my mindset has been that for almost as long as I can remember, I do attribute to having such positive influences as Coach Landtroop. I know that some people look back at their high school years with angst and torment, but I have such happy and fond memories at KHS swim team and all the friends that I've made and still have. And I truly, truly believe that it's because of Coach Landtroop. I can only hope that my swimmers and now my own children felt and feel the love and support that I've been growing up. And I hope that I can instill those lessons in all the kids that I continue working with today. Thank you, Laura. Thank you, Katie. I pulled this old relic out. This was something that Lanny used to give to all the state swimmers, little packets they put together. This is from 2002. And he had all these sayings about, just great motivational sayings. I still, think of these and never forget Lanny. So, again, love you, Lanny. We'll miss you, but you'll never be forgotten. Thank you very much.
Our next speaker is Mark Onstadt. Mark coached at Cy-Fair High School, and he will explain Lanny's influence on his career path. I want to thank Mark and his wife Jan for driving down from Nashville to be here with us today. Mark, myself, Lanny spent many, many hours in the conferences together, and I think we're all the better for that. At least we hope so. Mark Onstadt.
I want to start off by reading 3 remembrances from folks who knew Lanny. I was unaware I was going to do this. I do not have my reading glasses. Frankly, I don't read well. I mean, like when I'm looking down and trying to speak. I have books. So, the first one is from Heather Renders, who was a swimmer here at Kingwood from 1989 to 1992. What I remember most about Coach Landtroop is his huge, warm, generous, smiling greeting he gave me when I first met him. He may have been a little skeptical about our new coach because our hearts and spirits were bound to Coach Joe, after developing our teams through district regionals going on to win state the previous year. And a new coach wasn't the first thing on our minds. At least that's the way I remember it. I'm getting old. But she said that. But I remember that smile, that genuine greeting, shattering my suspicions, as well as our relationship with Coach developed. I know I was not the only one who felt truly lifted up. It was like he was praying for us, rooting for us, seeing the best in us, well before we were even aware of it. It was like the way Mr. Rogers changed the lives of thousands of children growing up without the best role models. He let them know that they were special to him, they were important, and that they were going to do something wonderful with their lives. Far beyond our swimming achievements, Coach Landtroop developed in me a sincere desire to connect with people in this way. Thank you for that life-altering inspiration. Thank you for sharing with us the very best. I'm still, in quotes, getting better and better every day and every way. And from Coach Ball, I actually know Bev Ball. She is a coaching legend in Texas as well, coached for 7 years, Texas at Abilene and Abilene Cooper, later at McMurray State, and was the first recipient of the Texas Lifetime Achievement Award. And she said, a great, great coach and friend. Lanny taught me so much, how to motivate my swimmers. We'll always cherish his friendship. He did so much for TSCA. And then from Don Allen, who was an Illinois coach and a NISCA secretary for many years and also a NISCA president. He said, I just want to express a few words about Lanny. I know he was and still is a legend in Texas high school swimming, but he was so much more than that. I first met Lanny at a NISCA convention many years ago when he gave a talk at one of our clinics. I was so impressed with his knowledge of swimming, but more so with his insight on motivating his team, and not only in swimming, but in life. Over the years, we met at many NISCA meetings, and my esteem for him continued to grow as he helped us navigate through some challenging times. NISCA was fortunate that Lanny took a strong leadership position in our organization. He is a legend in Texas, but he is also a legend in NISCA. Thank you, Lanny. That was from Don Allen. And because I do not read well looking down, I did not write anything down. And so I'm going to try to keep it simple. And in our house, with my wife, who is a Mary Kay superstar, it is not keep it simple stupid, it's keep it simple sweetie. And so I'm going to try to think of that as I just say a few words about Lanny and his impact on me, and of course his impact on NISCA. In 1979, I believe it was 1979, I met Lanny, and by met him, I mean he spoke at a clinic in Iowa. I was coaching in Iowa at the time, and I'd actually just became a head coach, and my first year we won a state championship, which tells you one thing. They had a really good coach to do. So we were able to continue that path. But Lanny spoke, and to be honest with you, I was probably a little full of myself. I'm sitting back there going, come on, I mean, you know, this guy's from Texas. Wait a second, what? You have a school period for swimming? Like, you have 2 school periods for swimming? What? You have so many kids who are good enough. This is when he was at Clear Lake, of course. You have so many kids that are good enough, you just keep, I think it was 18 girls and 18 boys. And then there's other kids who are really good enough, but they're not good enough. And of course, I'm at the time coaching like 45 girls, and also, you know, honing my skills on teaching swimming. because I had to teach some of them enough to even be able to swim 25 yards. So I thought, sometime in my future, what I might want to do is coach in Texas. So the opportunity came along at Cy-Fair. Cy-Fair is just on the other side of the world from here. And, I really thought I'd get to Cy-Fair and then I would see the lay of the land, which basically was mostly pasture at that time. A lot of people thought Cy-Fair's best sport was football, but it turned out it was rodeo. Anyway, so I did move down here. Was at Cy-Fair for 12 years. I saw Lanny speak every time at Tisca when I was down here, many, many times, and always wishing. And somehow I think Lanny has a little statement about don't be wishing. But anyway, I was wishing that someday I'd grow up and be like Lanny. And while I can tell you that I did strive for that and I did wish for that, I fell way short of the mark. And today reminds me even more how short of the mark I fell. But Lanny, really what I want to talk about is Lanny, how much I learned from Lanny, and most of it was sitting around the table with Lanny. And so I remember, I don't remember a lot, but I remember details, but I couldn't tell you what year it was. At one point, Lanny kind of invited me or whatever, and all of a sudden I'm sitting at a table and there's, probably 8 guys, 8 coaches, and it's Tisca. And somehow at the end, and it was lunch, it was probably at the clinic, Tisca clinic, and somehow at the end of it I was running for president of Tisca. Still really not sure how. But I did have the endorsement of Lanny, and at that point, that was really all that was needed. So Lanny was president of Tisca 3 times, but Lanny was so deeply immersed in Tisca the whole time, certainly the whole time I was here. And Lanny, I eventually left Cy-Fair in 1994, moved to the Great White North, suburb north of Chicago. And part of the reason I moved is because Lanny left coaching at Clear Lake to, I believe, kind of get in the art business in Austin. So, of course, I applied for the job at Clear Lake. And Lanny, I know he recommended several people. I wasn't the only one. But I did not get the job. And then Lanny came back. I had to talk to Sandra about this when we were in Nashville. I was trying to get a timeline on my own life from Sandra because so much of it involved Lanny and where Lanny went and when Lanny left. And I was, and this should scare anybody who swam at Kingwood in 1992, I was an applicant for that job. And I was pretty excited about the fact Coach Joseph had told me about the opening, and he was spreading it around. He definitely wanted to get somebody in there who would do a good job, and I was pretty excited about it. And I came over and interviewed, and I thought, well, I've been doing a lot of interviewing. I thought, well, I nailed that one. I'm in good shape here. And, we were at the spring scheduling meeting in Spring Branch, where all the coaches got together and argued about who they were going to swim and made their schedules, because athletic directors don't do that for swimming. At least they didn't. And on the walking out, my good buddy, Robert Tidmore here, said, "Hey, did you hear?" I said, "Did I hear what?" did you hear Lanny applied for the Kingwood job? And then he had to pick me up, carry me to the car, and you know, it's just like, well, so well, Lanny's at Clear Lake. I think I'll apply for the Clear Lake job. So my life has been following where Lanny lived. And where's Tom? Tom, so I think that was the time that I'm walking into the interview at Clear Lake, and Tom Harwood is walking out and going, "Oh, how you doing?" And they hired some guy who coached water polo. But anyway. And then that guy was there for a year and a half because he got fired. I was trying to think of a Lanny way to say that, you know, he moved to a better place, but that doesn't sound good. So anyway, and right before that, I got a phone call from, I think it was Dick, Grady, the astronaut, shuttle pilot. He called me and said, "Are you interested in coaching at Clear Lake?" I said, "I think they have a coach." Anyway, we had a short conversation. Now, the only way he got my number and knew my name is because Lanny told him. Anyway, and then that didn't work out because he got canned in the middle of the season, and Tom Landgraf, who just got back from California, a water polo guy, got hired. Well, he's also a great swim coach. But anyway, so it just keeps going around with Lanny. Lanny got a job, Lanny didn't get a job, Lanny left the job. And then I moved to the Great White North, and of course Lanny was one of my recommendations, one of my key recommendations, and I got that job and thought I would just do another TSCA thing. I'd do the Illinois version of TSCA, but it turned out it was a weak sister, not a good thing. So I thought, well, I'll get involved in NISCA. And I put my name in the hat for a zone director job. Didn't get that. It was in Austin. There were 3 people going for it. And after I didn't get it, Lanny went into with the president at that time and, you know, read him the riot act. Probably turned a couple shades of red. And you know, 9 months later, the president called me and I was a zone director. So Lanny has always been there. I decided to run for president of TSCA in 2003. I did it here in Texas because I thought I might have some friends there. I got elected. Lanny, the only time Lanny's ever followed me is he was president-elect when I was president. So and at that point he was just getting ready to retire, I think, or maybe he had just retired. And Lanny did not need to be president of NISCA. It wasn't like he needed, you know, a plaque with a judge's gavel on it. He didn't need that, which is what you get when you're done. But he did it because he wanted to help NISCA. And of course, he's been doing that for years as a speaker at clinics and as a very vocal person in our meetings and our business meetings, and definitely helping. But he decided to run for president, and he was president, of course, for his 2 years, and then past president. And he was just always so helpful to the direction of NISCA. And NISCA has a pretty big job. I mean, if you go down the hall and you look at the All-American certificates, NISCA is the organization that awards those certificates. And so we do it in swimming, we do it in water polo, we do it in diving, and we do it currently, we just added in the last couple of years, para-swimming. Very big job, and NISCA certainly has Lanny to thank for taking the helm and leading us through as we kind of were in a time where it was difficult to get people to commit to the time and the effort needed to do that. I do want to also say that I roomed with Lanny once. I told our treasurer that at that point I was president. A little yank, a little pull. So I told our treasurer that, I really didn't feel like that was good for anybody if I roomed with Lanny. And I also asked him if I could be, several rooms away from Lanny. He always had a way of making you feel better. I felt like he coached me from way back, but really from the time that he kind of encouraged me to sit at a table. And through all the times where the executive board of NISCA, we would get together before our conference, we'd get together at the ASCA clinic, we'd get together many times at the diving judging panel, and we would sit around the table and we would try to do things. We had business we had to do, but we also had what can we do to make this organization better and serve high school coaches better. And Lanny had such a big impact. While he was doing that, he was teaching, coaching those of us at the table. There aren't too many stories better than a Lanny story. And it was, the thrill of my life to be in that space and to be around him. And he made me better. He made those of us who were fortunate enough to be sitting there that close to him so often and for so long. And of course, at that point, with the NISCA is when we met Sandra, and my wife went to the NISCA meetings, and so she was fortunate enough to be around Sandra and Lanny, and they're about 10 times everything you've heard so far today. Just amazing people. And I don't like seafood. And I'm mature now, so I don't make that statement as I just did. I don't demand that we not go to a seafood restaurant. I don't demand that the people around me not order seafood. I'm grown up now. But I do remember one time when ASCA was in Fort Lauderdale, and I got down there like a day late. And so they all went to, Fred's Lobster Shack or something, I don't know, some Joe's Crab or something, I don't know, it's fish. And it was messy fish because they hit the ones with the paper net, and it had the logo of the restaurant on it. So they all thought it'd be really, really smart if we just wrote some comments on here, wish you were here, and they all signed it and gave it to me. And I appreciate that almost as much as everything else Lanny did for me. I love that we can come and be here, love that we can be around Sandra, and thank you very much.
One thing Mark didn't share was to his own horn. We were at one of our ASCA national meetings, or one of our NISCA national meetings, and Mark alluded to the different All-America programs that NISCA has. We have All-America Swimming, All-America Diving, All-America Water Polo, All-America Academic, and sometimes different chairs, they do great work, and they put in a lot of time, and they are wonderful people, but sometimes it's sort of like herding cats. And Lanny thought that maybe we need a coordinator to get all these people in line. So he picked Mark to be the All-America coordinator, which I promptly returned Captain All-America. He's been doing that for years, but it was Lanny that got him doing it. Lanny also got our current secretary, who is also our webmaster. He brought her in, and he's always looking to make people better, to make the organization he's part of better. And I shouldn't be taking all the time because I know his sister's ready to come up here, but Lanny just couldn't stop being Lanny, to our great benefit. And anything he was going to be a part of, it was going to be better when he was done with it. And I'm just so grateful that I got to come to Texas, like Mark came to Texas, and we've all had this association with Lanny and Sandra. Great moments in our lives.
Yep.
Morgan,
My husband's with you.
look what I got for you.
No, I don't know if I need
For those of you who don't know me, I am Lanny's baby sister. He was a lone male with 4 sisters. We lost our oldest sister a few years ago to ovarian cancer, but I can tell you she completely and totally idolized him her whole life. I have a few words from his twin sisters that were practically 10 years younger than him. They start off with saying one of their earliest memories was when he was practicing for a jitterbug contest. And how much fun it was. He would slam between his legs and round his back, and they had such a good time, and they thought he was such a good dancer, and but they were 5 years old. So what did they know? No. I do remember something. I hear these stories. I wasn't born yet, but it was kind of one of those marathon jitterbug things, and that he lasted a long time. Another one of the stories that they have alluded to when he was in scouting, and they talked about him dancing with the snakes, and they were sent in there to wake him up one morning, which nobody wanted to do because he was, believe it or not, even though he got up early his whole adult life, he was not one that was willingly an early riser when he was young. And so they were tasked with going in there and waking him up, and they went in there and they were petrified because one of the snakes was crawling up its 55 from. And they screamed and hollered, and he just looked at it, kicked the snake in the back of the drum, put the top back on, and went back to sleep. And they're just like, ah, you know, running in there screaming. And our sister Denise, which couldn't be here today because her oldest grandson was graduating from 8th grade in California, had the story of when she was in 1st grade, and Lanny was a senior in high school, and in Texas City was a small town, and the high school boys would come to the elementary school before basketball games to have an early lunch. And she was there getting her milk carton run, you know, if any of those, I don't know if they still do those in elementary schools, where you would get to have a milk break in between everything else. And she was standing in line, and she saw him over there, and he called her over there, and he introduced her and gave her a big hug. She just felt so special and honored to do so. And so that was just something that really, really stuck with her. And so they were about 8 years old, I guess, when he left for college. And so I never lived with him, but I have a story about college. Because when he was going off to his 2nd year of college, my mother was packing him up and getting him ready to go. And in the middle of doing so, she went into labor with me. She didn't tell me because she knew what would happen. She knew when to go. And so he went off to school, and he didn't find out that I was born until after he got there. And this is getting hard. He hitchhiked home the next weekend. And whoever picked him up said, "You going home to see your girl?" And he said, "I sure am." And that's where a relationship started. Even though we were almost 20 years apart, we were really, really close. My other story that I have that he's told me over and over again, and these are his words. I know he's talked about being a very motivational speaker, but he came home when I was 8 months old and was horrified because I wasn't walking yet. And he sent the bulk of his time that weekend bullying me until by the time he left to go back to school, I was walking. If y'all know anything about our relationship, he could get my ire up a little bit and get me to do things sometimes just because, just to show him. And I guess it started at a really, really early age. So this is where this whole thing comes from, Jason. He started it. Okay. One of my first memories is when he was teaching swimming lessons at the city pool in the summer. And I was about 5 years old, and I was taking swimming lessons from him. And as you know, to pass the course, you have to swim across the deep end of the pool. Well, I guess it hadn't been where you couldn't touch it. And so as soon as I jumped in, I started panicking, dog paddling, and screaming, I'm gonna drown, I'm gonna drown. And he's like, no, you're not, no, you're not. Well, you hate me, why are you trying to kill me? Laura, you're my sister, I love you, I'm not trying to kill you. Yes, you are, you hate me, all the way across the pool. And before you know it, I'm on the other side of the pool. He was sneaky, he was very sneaky, I can tell you that. And the rest of these guys stole my stories. But needless to say, I spent many times in Austin, my husband and I did, in a one-bedroom apartment with Lanny. And the quarters were 2 plus. We would try to go to sleep, and we just never made it. And the rafters would shake. It was true. But anyway, that's really all I have to say is his sisters idolized him. We missed him. And we loved him. Thank you.
Who has spent the night in the same room with Lanny before? Amazing, isn't it? It's amazing. Our next speaker is one of Lanny's swimmers from the early days. Peggy, where are you?
Right here.
Okay, Peggy McCall. And actually, we have Peggy's sister was recommended to NISCA to help us with our annual lodging and hotel accommodations, and she's been doing that for a number of years, but something else Lanny did for NISCA. Peggy McCall.
Make sure I get the right speed. Whichever one I want. No, you don't want some of these speeches. Good afternoon. I swam for Coach Landtroop from 1970 to 1974, 2 years at Clear Creek and 2 years at Clear Lake. And I want to start by just saying thank you, Coach. He initiated swimming at Clear Creek High School in the fall of 1969. By the spring of 1970, those Wildcat swimmers were district and regional champions. They repeated again in 1971 and 72. And in the fall of 73, Coach Landtroop inaugurated the swimming and water polo programs at Clear Lake High School. Water polo? He made me learn how to throw and catch a ball. That is no joke. I've worn glasses since I was a year old. My experience with balls included this technique. He made me stand on deck and take the ball and touch the wall and bring it back. Touch the wall and bring it back 100 times. One step back, touch the wall, bring it back, touch the wall. One more step back. I said, Coach, I can't hold on to the ball. And he smiled and said, I know. I had to be able to have the ball touch the wall and catch it without dropping it 100 times in a row. It took forever. But then I got to step back one more step until I got from the end of the pool to the wall. And then he said, great, now go back
do it one-handed. He was serious, one-handed, all the time. The girls are in the pool, I'm on the deck. I'm as dry can be after every workout. Took over 2 weeks, but I did learn how to throw and catch a ball one-handed. And I was so motivated by the girls in the pool that I was not about to give up, even though I was pretty lousy at the beginning. After those deck drills, and then I could prove that I could throw and catch it 100 times without dropping, he let me in the pool for water polo workouts. And he let me wear my glasses. I didn't need them, but he let me wear them. The water polo ball's yellow. Well, at the state tournament that fall, we were playing outdoors at the old A&M outdoor pool, and the other team called a timeout. The ref called coach over to him, and I thought, oh boy, and then they pointed at me, and what did I do? They called me over to the side. The other team said that my glasses were reflecting the sunlight and blinding them. So they made me take them off, which turned out to be the best thing that could have ever happened. Because I'm cross-eyed. I'm really cross-eyed. And I'm a girl. I throw across my chest. But my left eye goes that way. And I scored more goals in the state tournament than I scored all season. I can still hear this one goalie telling her coach, "Coach, she's looking the other way." She didn't know I was right-eyed. I made all state that year. And I couldn't even throw the ball the first day of workout. And then you didn't flinch my senior year. Coach Landtroop didn't flinch my senior year when I asked him, and repeat, I begged him to let me work out with the boys. I was desperate to be better. And he let me do it. I ended up in the freshman boys lane, but that was okay. It was still extra laps, and it was before UIL limited how many hours you could work out a week. Okay, and because of you, Coach Landtroop, I swam in college. Because of you, I became a coach. Because of you, all my swimmers could hear, "Up!" underwater. You gave me the ability to instill in them that you get to and you gotta wanna. The training was hard, it was boring, it was exhausting, it was invigorating, and it was challenging. The medals that I thought were so important weren't. The wins that I thought were so important weren't. What was important is what we learned about our own ability to persevere. A lifelong lesson hidden within the daily drudgery of thousands of laps. Thank you for that lesson.
That sort of winds up our list of speakers. I've sort of felt like Lanny was here hearing all those stories. You know, they bring back so many things. All of us can connect with something that was shared by somebody, whether it was those acronyms or the jokes he pulled. There are some note cards at the table out front if you have something you'd like to share so the family can have a little remembrance from you. If you're one of the many people who wasn't speaking today, I'm sure they appreciate it. Plenty of pens, plenty of note cards.
I have something I'd like to share.
Jason is going to wrap this up. Almost got away with it, didn't I?
Thank you.
Jason Landtroop.
Just let me say one thing before Jason. We're having just a very informal get-together at our house, 2123 Laurel Mill. anyway, boy jump. I use that on my high school students. I don't want to do this paper. That's okay. I'll let you do it anyway. Exactly.
Good afternoon. Andrew Alvin Landtroop Jr. Lanny, Coach, Bubba, Uncle, Yoda, Grandpa, Dad, my father was called by many names throughout the course of his life. I'm fairly certain that he was called a few other names over the course of the years that are probably not appropriate to repeat in this forum. Dad was a son of a really interesting guy. Andrew Alvin Landtroop Sr. was quite a character and was larger than life in our family. He served in the Navy in the Pacific Theater in World War II. After the war, he came home and went to work in an oil refinery in Texas City. But he spent every spare minute he had coaching. He coached Little League in Texas City for many years, and he did it for two reasons. He loved the sport, and he loved the kids he coached. Knowing the power of this example, it is no surprise that my father chose coaching as his profession. I've learned some things about my dad in the months since he passed. I learned the story that was shared earlier when he was a boy fishing at the Texas City dike and stripped down to his skivvies and jumped in the water to save a struggling swimmer. Another story that was shared earlier when he was a lifeguard and swim instructor in 1950s Texas City, and the city fathers wouldn't allow black kids to attend lessons at the white pool. This didn't sit well with Dad. So he and a cousin went to the black pool and taught the lessons there. These two stories have two things in common. They both involve swimming. They both involve my father putting the needs of others ahead of his own. My dad has often shared the story about his first year teaching and coaching at South Houston High School in 1966. He was given the option of becoming the swimming coach or the tennis coach. Now, I don't know if Dad ever picked up a tennis racket in his entire life. So I think it was a pretty easy decision. He chose swimming. But the more that I reflect on this, I've come to the realization swimming chose him. My father was a humble man. He never liked to talk about his accolades or accomplishments. So why me too? His dual meet record was 543 wins, 15 losses, and 2 ties. Now, much to my mother's chagrin, I was not a math major. But that works out to about a 97% winning percentage in his dual meet record. That'll get you in a couple halls of fame. 16 swimming state championships, 2 water polo state championships, 3 national championships. Texas Coach of the Year 18 times. National Coach of the Year, Texas High School Coach of the 20th century. Wrap your head around that. How do you even conceive of an award like that? And as mentioned, he is members of the NISCA Hall of Fame and also the Texas Swimming and Diving Hall of Fame. I've been struck at just how little my dad's friends and family sometimes knew about the magnitude of his success. My aunt Denise, after reading Dad's obituary and seeing the list of his accomplishments, said, "I knew my brother was a good coach, but damn." My father's lifelong friend, Shep Burton, put it a little more eloquently. We've exchanged messages several times over the course of the last few weeks as plans for the celebration were coming together. In one of these messages, Shep shared this with me. He never told me about his success as a coach. When I read about it, my thoughts went immediately to this. Of course, it had to be. Shep has written a poem in Dad's honor. I'd like to read it for you now. In memory of Lanny, my friend. There once was a man we all called Lanny, a colleague and friend to so many. He expired on a past day, so this tribute we pay to a man who has helped shape so many. He graduated high school and went to SFA. He was there a while, but decided not to stay. Instead, he graduated from U of H and carved out a niche with a chance to get rich, but that wasn't a game he could play. He had a philosophy that made him a stud, that benefited so many to avoid the fate of a dud. Every day in every way, we get better and better. It made his swimmers get wetter and wetter. His aim, his goal, he'd help you be good. He didn't preach, but he did teach. He taught us why and how to reach. There was not wild, but there was wit, and for sure practice would make you fit. There would be success for each. Lanny showed commitment, wonder, and glee. When we saw him each day in the pool class, he was the best he could be. With his iron-trap memory and probing mind, he was one of a kind. Such an admirable fellow was he. Thank you for that, Shep. You know, I have some personal experience in dealing with Dad's notable and sometimes infuriating humility. When Dad was inducted into the Texas Swimming and Diving Hall of Fame, I found out about it after the fact. Not after he got the news, but after he was inducted. He knew I was busy and didn't want to bother me with it. Suffice it to say, I made enough of a fuss about Dad not sharing that with me that when it came time to dedicate his Hall of Fame plaque at the Texas Swimming Center, I knew about it well in advance. And I was able to proudly attend. In addition, Dad has been a member of the NISCA Hall of Fame since 2001. So that's 2 Halls of Fame. Today I am proud and excited to announce that in September, Lady Landtroop will be inducted into the Clear Creek ISD Athletics Hall of Honor. Along with his swimmer from Clear Lake, Scott Jones, and the Clear Lake High School boys swimming teams from 1981, 1982, 1983, and 1984. Yes, the entire teams. That crew won state 4 years in a row, one of the most dominant runs in the history of Texas high school swimming. I know that Dad would be proud and thrilled beyond measure that these teams and individuals would be getting that recognition. It's always about the team for him. I want to talk for a minute about the greatest gift that my father gave to me. My father's voice. Let me be clear about this. I am not referring to my father's singing voice. You see, I inherited that too. And I can assure you, it was no gift. My father's voice was booming. It had to be in order for it to be heard by swimmers who were 25 yards away and underwater. My father saved my life once, just with the sound of his voice. We had neighbors in League City that lived a couple of doors down from us that were dog breeders. They bred Dobermans. One day, we pulled into the driveway and there were a couple of these Dobermans running around loose in the neighbor's front yard. I got out of the car, closed the door, turned around, and froze. Those two Dobermans were both in a dead sprint, headed right for me. I didn't even have a chance for life to flash before my eyes when I heard and felt a thunderbolt. Yeah! My father had screamed at the dogs and scared them so badly that they turned tail and ran. He was giving them the look, too. You all know the look. Sandra put it so perfectly in her tribute to Dad. Being with Lanny was like basking in sunshine. But make no mistake, storm clouds could quickly overtake the sunshine when he sensed meanness, cruelty, or injustice. Or, in this case, when a couple of bloodthirsty murder dogs came charging his side. As I got older and grew into leadership roles in my career, I began to realize how often, when I opened my mouth to speak, it was my father's voice that came out. Whether coaching someone on serving technique, or pumping up the crew before a busy day, or even talking someone off of a metaphorical ledge, my father's voice came out again and again. My father's voice has inspired me and guided me. What an amazing gift. Thank you, Dad. We've talked a lot today about Dad's favorite acronym. It would get, how do you say it? That's something out here.
A do-ga-bob.
A do-ga-bob. Every day and every way, we get better and better. You know, as far as acronyms go, that one's pretty terrible. It doesn't really flow out of your mouth. But the sentiment behind it is so powerful. Every day, in every way, we get better and better. So I want to leave you today with a challenge. Yes, a challenge. It is a simple challenge, but not an easy one. I challenge you to be better. Be better. Be better students. Be better teachers and coaches. Be better spouses and partners. Be better restaurant operators and preschool directors. Better actors. Be better friends. Be better neighbors. Be better citizens. I've read so many accounts of my father inspiring swimmers and students to be better citizens. What does that even mean in today's world? A wise man once said, many of the truths that we cling to depend greatly on our own point of view. How can we agree on what being a better citizen means when we can't even agree on what truth is? When we can't even agree on basic facts? I don't know how we get there from here. But I do think I know what Lanny Landtroop's idea of being a better citizen would be. Be better stewards of the environment. Take better care of this planet. It's the only one we've got. Be kind. Kindness is a passport that opens doors and fashions friends. It softens hearts and molds relationships that can last lifetimes. Be gracious. Show someone grace, even though they might not deserve it. Be grateful. Be patient. Be genuine. Sandra shared a proverb with me last night that perfectly sums up my father's philosophy on life. Do what's right with all your might. That's what a better citizen sounds like to me. Before I close, I need to express some gratitude on behalf of the entire extended Landtroop family. Thank you so much to Kingwood High School for donating the use of this facility today. Could not imagine doing this anywhere else. Thank you to Coach Brad Quint for facilitating all the logistics for this ceremony. Brad actually swam for Dad at Kingwood and is now the assistant coach. Brad, thank you. We could not have done this without you. Thank you to Dana Abbott for graciously getting volunteered to MC today's proceedings. Thank you, Dana. Thank you to Coach Mark Onstock for continually following my dad wherever he went. and for having books. To Becky Nicole Thank you for speaking today. Thank you for changing my diapers when I was a baby on the pool deck. And thank you for never letting me forget it. Thank you to Russ Dillon for not letting my father drown that day in Galveston Bay. In closing, I simply want to say thank you. This day has been simply great.
I can't believe I almost skipped asking Jason to come on. Thank you all for being here. This has been a day I've looked forward to, but a day that I will remember even more than the anticipation. The stories shared are wonderful. Lanny has touched each of us in innumerable ways, and I think we're all better for it. So now I will tell you, if you have a thought you would like to leave with the family, there are still note cards and pens out front. And I mentioned this to, I think I mentioned it to Jason and maybe Russ, but I think it'd be fun to get a group photo of everybody who wore the Hawaiian shirts today. So I think the best lighting is probably on the stage or in front. In front, Jan? Jan? Up on the stage. If you're wearing one of these, come on up here and let's. Who's going to take a picture? Jan? Jan will take
in the picture.
Huh?
Maybe Kate will be in the picture. Yes, I want to be a picture. Go, Randy.
Yeah, Randy, you're going to be in the middle with Lanny's real shirt.